reported, I should say, about the trial and Donald Trump's testimony at his civil trial in New York that is being brought by the Attorney General, Letitia James. It's the persistent fraud case where Trump is being accused civilly, not prosecuted criminally, of overinflating his assets or devaluing them when he wants to pay less taxes and just lying in his business practices. And that's a civil case that also has a companion criminal investigation that Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, still has open. And at the civil case, that is a bench trial where there is no jury, so it's just Judge Engoron who's hearing the evidence. At the trial, the Attorney General is still on their case in chief, and they have called some of the defendants to the stand, which you can do in a civil trial. Now, a defendant can take the fifth if they want, because they do not want to incriminate themselves, especially in a case where there's still an open criminal pending investigation. But Trump and his adult children have chosen not to take the fifth and have decided to testify, to agree to testify, having been called as a witness. And what happened when Trump testified is it went very poorly. By all accounts, he was rambling. He was not answering the questions. He was not responsive. He was absolutely he was accused of treating the court like he was at a rally, and he was going on and on about how the Attorney General is biased against him, how the judge is biased against him. He said this is the opposite of fraud. And, he was just trying to give a speech. He was talking about China. He was talking about the artistic expression at one of his golf courses in Scotland. I mean, he just was talking about how Scotland has oil and, large oil reserve and, lots of things that just really had nothing to do with the trial. And it got apparently quite heated because really a trial is not an opportunity for you to just do what you want. It's not an opportunity to say whatever you want. It's really something special and important in our civil society. A trial is a place for relevant and admissible evidence to come in to determine facts and applying law to the facts and deciding whether or not a person is either guilty of a crime or liable criminally or civilly, I should say. It's a way of determining what happened. And there are rules of the road. There are rules of evidence. You can't just say whatever you want. That's why you hear lawyers stand up in court and say objection, hearsay, and a judge will say sustained, right? And it can't come in, or overruled and it can come in. And then there's a court reporter taking it down and it becomes part of the record. And judges are trained and very careful to make sure that nothing clutters the record that isn't supposed to be there. Now, with the bench trial, it's a little looser because a judge can say to themselves, I'm not going to take into consideration the things that are inappropriate that shouldn't come in. And so, with a jury, it's different. You have to really be careful not to let the jury hear things or know things. But a judge presumably can have a little more, they know the rules of the road and they can do that. But that being said, it might be a little bit looser, but it can't be a free for all. And so if Donald Trump is going on and on, first of all, a few good things happened yesterday for the Attorney General. Donald Trump, unlike his sons, he didn't distance himself from the asset valuations. In fact, he admitted that he was part of the decision making and sometimes would say that's overinflated or underinflated or whatever. And he admitted some of that. So those are facts that the Attorney General, I think, wanted to hear and was going to, I'm sure when they sum up, they will highlight those facts. But the rest of his testimony that was non-responsive to the questioning was just all over the place. And Alina Habba, just her reaction to Donald Trump's testimony and to the judge was so extreme and so unusual that it made me look up her background, because I was thinking to myself, does she not have any experience as a trial lawyer? Because let's remember for a minute, who is Alina Habba, right? She's one of Donald Trump's main lawyers. She seems to be in many of his cases, at one point, Donald Trump walked away a little bit from her and said, she's going to be more of a spokesperson than an attorney. But here she is in court. She's cross-examining witnesses. She cross-examined Michael Cohen when he testified in the case. And, she's very much involved in this trial. But after the trial, after Trump testified, she got up and first of all, she gave a press conference outside of court, pounding, clutching her pearls, as they say. I'm not going to tolerate being yelled at. And the judge slammed his fist down at me. And Trump also gave a speech outside of court accusing the court and the judge of being biased against him, saying that the judge called me a fraud, but he doesn't even know me. No, the judge didn't call you a fraud. The judge ruled, based on all the evidence that have come out so far, that there was persistent fraud already. But that's a legal ruling based on evidence. That's not name calling, which is what you're doing, Donald Trump. And, during one of the breaks in the proceedings, Habba went outside and was going on and on about the judge, saying his face was red when Trump was on the witness stand, and the judge was trying to silence Trump, and he wouldn't let him answer questions about his business or about Mar-a-Lago. And then she says, what exactly am I being paid as an attorney to do? Why are taxpayer dollars being used in this courtroom if he's already jumped to conclusions? She accused Letitia James, of trying to make a name for herself and saying she's not that bright. And she also said that she was scolded during Mr. Trump's testimony, saying, I was told to sit down. I was yelled at. I've never had a judge who's unhinged slamming a table. I don't tolerate that in my life, and you shouldn't either. And this was her kind of, harumphing. And, interestingly, Danya Perry, who has been a guest on this show several times, was in court. And she said she didn't see any of that. She didn't see the judge yelling at her or acting in any way that was not judicial. In fact, all he was doing was trying to keep control of the courtroom, because it was Donald Trump who was not answering questions, who was not giving testimony. And just remember, that's what a court of law is for. A court of law is for giving evidence. It's not for making speeches. And a judge has an obligation to maintain the record appropriately and not let just anything come in. And first of all, it's a waste of time. But second of all, it's just utterly inappropriate. And why were they doing it? Why was Trump doing that? Why wouldn't he just answer questions? Why was this an opportunity to make a speech? This is a bench trial. He should have been trying to ingratiate himself to the judge. He should have been trying to defend his actions if they're defensible. He should have, he prides himself as somebody who's made his money and made his business empire and became president because he can talk and he can convince people of things and persuade people. He was a TV personality. That's how he got to where he is. So why didn't he use that same tactic with the judge? Why instead is he attack and pissing off the judge even more and actually really not helping his case? And why is Alina Habba doing the same thing and going after the judge and going after the attorney general? And first of all, so I looked up, I think the answer is because the facts hurt them. And so if they don't have the facts, the law hurts them and the facts hurts them. And if you can't argue the law and you can't argue the facts, then go on and attack the process, because that's all you have left. And that's what they're doing here. They're attacking the process and attacking the judge because, first I looked up at Alina Habba's bio, because honestly, before this, I'd never even heard of her. And, she doesn't seem to have any trial experience. She's not a trial lawyer. And so, all right, then I give her that. I give her the fact that since she has no trial experience and is not a trial lawyer, she doesn't know what it's like in court. She doesn't know what judges are like. She doesn't realize that if you disobey, that the judge is in charge. And if you disobey what he says, any lawyer, if you say, if you ask a question and somebody objects or the judge deems it inappropriate, if the judge says, sustained, right? As a lawyer, you stop. you stop talking. If you keep going, the judge is going to say sustained. And, you know, they don't really usually pound the gavel like they do on TV, but they will get heated and say, stop talking and sit down, because you cannot disobey a judge in court. The judge, she or he, is in charge. And she clearly doesn't have that experience to know that, because she took the fact that the judge, who was acting utterly appropriately by trying to get Donald Trump to only give admissible and relevant evidence at trial, which is exactly what his job is to do, he wasn't doing it. And so he and Alina Habba was being inappropriate. And so the judge had to slightly raise his voice and act like any judge would and tell her to stop. He is in charge. And that's the thing Donald Trump's not used to. He's not used to the fact that he can't just do whatever he wants and say whatever he wants. This is not a press conference outside of court where he can just stream of consciousness, say what he wants. And you know what? If he wanted to say something different than what the Attorney General's office was asking, his time to do that, why didn't Alina Habba cross-examine him afterward or ask him questions after her word?